Okay, let's go to this other thing here. We saw this individual here, forget her name, Matson, I think. Yeah, Matson. Um, she's going by Brother Christian Matson. Um, so we saw her before in a previous video where she came out as a transgender hermit, biologically a female, identifying as a male, is called Brother Christian. The bishop of the diocese allows her to call herself Brother Christian. I critiqued that whole thing already in a separate video, so I'm not going to reproduce that today. Rather, I'm going to turn to this situation, which is where you had a parish talk uh, the um, by the hermit, um, rescheduled after negative comments on social media. So the article notes a swarm of angry, vitriolic comments on social media prompted organizers in Lexington, Kentucky, to postpone a parish event that was to feature a talk by, quote, Brother Christian Matson, a diocesan hermit who is transgender. My question is, first of all, why are they being brought to the parish to talk? Why do that? Obviously, there is a problem here. And what needs to happen is there needs to be a call to repentance, not a call to bring that person to the spotlight and to give talks. That's not helpful. That's not helpful to Matson herself. That actually hurts Matson because it's basically affirming a lie instead of addressing the truth and getting to the source of the problem and actually getting her the help that she needs. The comments, which were posted in a Facebook group on the parish Facebook page in Lexington, led Stan J.R. Zerkowski to conclude that the event originally scheduled for March 10 in a building on the parish campus would not be safe for those attending. He says some of them were so frightening in their vitriol that it made me very concerned about the safety of both Brother Christian and also of those trans persons who would be coming to this event, which I don't know if this is a good precedent, because doesn't that then mean that this mob knows that all they have to do is swarm your social media with a bunch of nasty comments and they can get you to cancel stuff? Zerkowski told National Catholic Reporter that the event, which was to feature Matson talking about his life and answering questions about transgender issues, has been rescheduled for April 7th in the main church building. He said law enforcement officials will be present to provide security. The trolls are not going to shut us up, he said. They're not going to shut down our ministry, and they're not going to intimidate us. Okay, how is this a ministry? Bringing a transgender hermit to speak at your parish. How is that a ministry? It's not. The episode in Lexington is the latest flashpoint where transgender identity is clashing with the Catholic Church's traditional teaching on sexuality and gender. While Pope Francis has met with transgender people and sought to create a welcoming space for them in the Church, the Vatican has referred to gender theory and gender affirming surgeries as grave violations of human dignity. Right, there's a world of difference, right? And sometimes people conflate these two. If you speak against gender theory, they'll say you're not welcoming me as a person to your parish. You're not giving me dignity, and the two are not the same. You can welcome a person to the parish, invite them to church. You can show them the respect and dignity that they deserve as a human being without affirming their sin and without affirming their delusion, without affirming gender theory and gender affirming surgeries. The two are not the same. One does not mean the other, but they often equate the two. And so Pope Francis will say, yeah, we welcome all, we receive all, but he'll say homosexuality is a sin. Or he'll say, but gender theory, gender affirming surgeries, the church is opposed to them. Sadly, Fernandez came and nuanced that a little bit more in a negative way, which we saw about a week ago in a show that I did. Okay. The comments that alarmed Zerkowski were shared in response to a flyer advertising the event that he had posted in a Facebook group on the parish Facebook page. Zerkowski said several commenters personally attacked Matson, who publicly announced his transgender identity in 2024. I don't know what the attacks look like. Look, let me say this. Hey, when it comes to Matson or anyone else, I don't think their lives should be threatened. I don't think they should be physically threatened. And I do think they need to be treated with respect and dignity. And I believe that about everybody. But I don't think that that means that you shouldn't be criticized. I don't think that that means you shouldn't be called to repentance for your sin and told that you're engaging in sin. I think that is fair. It's fair for a person to critique your behavior, to call you to repentance, and to say what you're doing is wrong. I think that's fine. I don't know if that's what these commenters were doing. Maybe they're going beyond that and they're attacking the person's dignity and they're threatening. I don't know. Maybe they're doing that. And if they're doing that, that's wrong. But if people are just simply calling um, sinners to a holier lifestyle, hey, you know what? That's the message of the Bible. You got to deal with that if you're going to claim to be a Christian. Okay, some of the comments were just beyond the pale, said Zerkowski, who added that one of the people commenting on Facebook had a cover photo of their personal page depicting a religious sister in full habit armed with a shotgun. Okay, but that's not a threat against a person, right? That's just a profile picture. That's not a threat against Matson or anyone else. I'm not saying that there weren't threats being made because I don't know. I haven't read the messages, but just somebody's profile picture. Come on, that's not a threat. As I looked through the profiles of the people who commented, I felt that this was just an unsafe situation. He said, "Okay." Matson told NCR that he saw some of the comments and that they did not surprise him. People have been emboldened to say nasty things to trans folks, Matson said, adding that he lost longtime friends after he came forward publicly as transgender on Pentecost 2024. I have to pause there and say again, when you as a transgender person, Matson, when you say that people said nasty things to you, what were those comments? Because sometimes what people would classify as nasty things are not what they are. But especially with a person who's already having a problem classifying their own gender, I don't trust that they are going to classify comments accurately. If they are a woman and they think they're a man, you're probably also going to think that that certain criticisms that are legitimate are nasty comments. Uh, be that as it may, maybe there were some nasty comments, maybe there were some things that are out of line, or were these just merely comments that said, this is wrong of you, this is sinful, this is dishonest of you, this is harmful of you, this is misleading. If that's what people are saying, that's not nasty, that's you needing to face reality. And I suspect it's probably comments like that that Matson is referring to. But I don't know for sure because I don't know what the comments are. It would be nice if Matson gave us specifics so we can evaluate them properly. Matson says, I think that's partly to do with our conversation about the topic of the church, where we're really not talking with trans folks, but talking about trans folks, part of which this talk was supposed to correct. It's one thing to talk to trans folks. It's another to have someone who is under a delusion claiming that they're Brother Matson when they're actually not Brother Matson and bring them to a parish to speak as Brother Matson. That's the problem. It's not an issue of just talking to transgender people. That's fine. That needs to be done. We need to have conversations with everybody, transgender or not. It's not the problem. The problem is bearing false witness and speaking at a parish under the guise of Brother Matson when you're maybe Sister Matson. I don't know how this works with the hermit. I guess Sister Matson is what they call the hermits when you're actually Sister Matson, right? So I think that's really the issue, and what we're seeing here is kind of a spin from Matson. Okay. At the rescheduled event on April 7th, Matson said he will talk about his life experiences for about an hour, as well as his theological position, which he will detail in an upcoming book, which emphasizes that being a trans person is compatible with Catholic anthropology. Matson said he will also share his thoughts on how the church can better support trans Catholics before answering questions from people in the audience. To which I want to say there's nothing wrong with Matson explaining to people um, her position, which it would need to be the church's position. Just as a Catholic, if your position is different there, then we do have a problem. But there's nothing wrong with a person explaining what their position is if it's the magisterium's position and if they claim to be a Catholic. I think ultimately the problem is the bearing false witness when you're doing that while saying I'm Brother Matson. That's the problem. That's the issue. You got to drop the brother stuff, and you got to stop pretending and presenting yourself as something that you're not if you're going to then go and give that message. That's the issue. Otherwise, just be silent. Don't say anything at all. If you struggle with this problem personally, then get out of the spotlight and wrestle with that, and go through that stage of repentance in private. Don't go to the public, but then bears false witness in the public, and then get upset when people criticize you for that. By the way, thank you, Matthew Schmidt, for that super chat. He says, it's always National Catholic Reporter. That site is filled with heathen garbage. Thank you for the comment. So Matson says, I encourage people to ask questions. I'm happy to answer any questions publicly. Father Richard Watson, pastor of historic St. Paul Catholic Church, who also saw the social media comments, told NCR that several of his parishioners voiced their displeasure that Matson's talk on March 10th had been canceled. They didn't want hate to win, said Watson, who added that he tailored his mass homily for the weekend of March 15th to 16th to throw down the gauntlet against hate. I suspect it wasn't hate that they were receiving in the comments. Well, maybe some of them. I don't know. I've seen some pretty nasty stuff. I suspect it wasn't hate, but it was just legitimate criticism. I suspect that was the bulk of it. You probably have some outliers here or there who cross the line. You probably do. But I suspect, I don't know for sure, I suspect the bulk of it was legitimate criticisms, and they misconstrue that as hate, and they spin it as hate. And this is something that you see liberals often do. And I also see some traditionalists do the same thing. They will call dissent loyalty to tradition, loyalty to the magisterium. Well, on the liberal end, they'll call murder free choice, right? They'll spin it. They'll try to couch it in one way when in fact it's another. And here, what you might have going on is legitimate criticisms, but they're spinning it as, that's just hate. And we don't need to let hate win. I don't know for sure unless I saw the comments, but my gut feeling tells me that's what's behind most of this. Anyways, let me look at the chat here. See what we got. Big Stack says virtue signaling. Yeah, a little bit of that going on. Certainly looks like it. 1 second. What else we got? Shouldn't hermits be hermits and not in the public eye? There you go. Yeah. A lot of people have pointed that out. Trix RN says delusional thinking is being normalized. Yeah, I agree. That is taking place. What else we got? Paul, in reference to the previous story that we covered, says their dissent is why Pope Francis hires these awful choices. His pool to pick from is smaller because of conservative dissent. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. That's an interesting theory, but I don't know about that one. I am sure Pope Francis can find somebody who is not a dissenter on either end of the spectrum, either on one side or the other. I guarantee he can find people who are loyal to the magisterium, and plenty of them. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know if his choices are really that limited. Okay. Big Stack says in reference to Trump's some of Trump's decisions, at least for now, we are back to two genders. Matthew says if a bishop is unknown, he is usually good. That's an interesting point there. Looking through the chat, what else we got? Dominic asks, I wonder if it's because Pope Francis is somehow attuned to how few actually Orthodox Catholics are in leadership in this current generation, with too many people on either extremes. Kind of like what we heard from the previous comment. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the situation, to be honest. Tim says Pope Francis seems to be leery of conservatives, but isn't it conservatives who are undermining him in the church? Yeah, both liberals and conservatives are undermining him, uh, but not all conservatives, right? But some of them are. Yes, maybe that does, paint a picture for him in his mind about conservatives. I think we actually covered that in a previous show where he had that interview with 60 Minutes, and I spoke about that. As I pointed out, oddly enough, a lot of Pope Francis's positions are conservative, and yet he criticizes conservatives. So in his mind, he seems to be defining it a little differently. Great Wall says, did they know this person was a woman when they joined the hermitage? There isn't a hermitage. It's just this one person. And yes, the bishop knew. And I critiqued that in the previous video. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Much more good content coming your way, so stay tuned. If you want to be in tune with what's going on with the show, you need to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so you know when I go live. And you need to hit the like button as well. If you appreciated the message that I gave in analyzing the content that we reviewed here today, if you appreciated this video, do your part. Hit the like button and leave a comment. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your feedback, but also it helps the algorithm and it will reach more people with this video. So if you appreciate it, do your part. Help me reach new people with this content. That's going to do it for today. Check me out at patreon.com/Reason and Theology if you want to get access to the patron-only video I just did about an hour ago and many, many other patron-only videos. Patreon.com/Reason and Theology. God bless. Hey, have you been benefiting from this channel, but you're not supporting it?
You're definitely guilty.
Get over to patreon.com/Reason and Theology and support this channel if you've been benefiting from the content.
Did I say get it done now?
I mean right now.
And if you can't support the show financially, you should at least be subscribed, right? Am I right or am I right?
Yeah, I think he's right.
I'm right. So go and hit the subscribe button right now. Are you seeking clarity in the midst of confusion about Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism? In my book, Answering Orthodoxy, I offer a biblical and historical response to the most common objections that Eastern Orthodox offer against the Catholic Church. This book is for anyone searching for the truth, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, or simply trying to make sense of the differences between Catholics and Orthodox. Order your copy today and discover the rational, biblical, and historical basis for the Catholic Church. Visit Amazon to order your copy today.